All right, it is Tuesday night, and we are back with another episode of Goal Horns and Fight Songs after a fun weekend of tournaments and then championship games and then selection. I guess it was selection Sunday, just like the basketball tournament and seeing where everyone was going. I'm Mike. Again, with me is Wes. That was quite the weekend.
It was a lot to talk about with the small tournaments, the big tournaments, some awards handed out. Um, let's jump into it, I guess. Let's not waste any more time than I've already wasted by spilling a ton of apple juice all over my desk and trying to short circuit every electronic device on it.
The hazards of having a child.
Yeah, except it was me, not the child who made the mess. I am the child.
Yeah, you are a child.
You're not wrong. All right. Let's start with the NCHC awards, which were handed out last Thursday before the Frozen Face Off. I think there were probably not too many surprises. Um, we'll just go in. We'll just start. Player of the Year, Jason Poland, senior forward for Western Michigan, leading the country in goals. Top 10, I think, in points. Been doing it all year long. Honestly, he's been kind of a standout amongst the crowd for his play this year. And, first will be the first one to say that he is an absolute leader of that locker room and has carried a young line to some solid play all year long. I think we forget that because of the numbers they're putting up, that Ryan McAllister is a freshman and Max Hassan's a sophomore.
Yeah, that line, it's a super young line.
So, well deserved to him for being the NCHC Player of the Year. Coach of the Year, another Bronco, Pat Ferschweiler. A lot of people picked this team to finish in the lower half of the conference just with the number of players that left last year. He really built, he went to the transfer portal, picked out some guys who seemed to fit in really well and turned up. And the guys that stayed took a step in the right direction as far as their progression towards being pro players, and finished second in the standings with a chance to fight for that first place and got a GLI championship. Went down and won in Nashville against a tough team in Northeastern. And really in his second year as the head coach here, showed why he was the right choice to take over after Andy left.
Yeah, I don't think there are a couple of coaches you could have and I cannot think of his name, that you could say the coach from Omaha, you could say Carlisle from Denver, but Denver was also coming off a national championship year. Um, all the guys that Western lost after last year and what Western was able to do this year under Firsch, it I think you have to give the nod to him. Omaha, their coach could have won it just as easily, I think, for going from sixth to third, but they're also a team that's kind of always in that frame. And maybe if they would have made the tournament, they would have he would have gotten it if they would have had that pairwise ranking.
Yeah, I mean, I think they were the other two finalists, I believe. I know Omaha's coach was. I'm not entirely sure if Denver's coach was. I think a lot of people picked Denver to be back at the top of the conference. After what they were able to do last year, I think they did have quite a few guys returning. Didn't lose a whole bunch, did lose some. But Bobby Brink went to the pros. He was a standout from last year that I think they really lost. But they leaned on guys they had coming back, picked up some new guys. The thing that I think hurts Omaha's coach of the year is the same thing that hurts them in the national tournament. They finished third in the conference. They're out, but the team who finished fourth in the conference had an at-large bid. I mean, they ended up winning the tournament, so they would have been in no matter what. But St. Cloud State was ahead of Omaha in the national standings or the national rankings and the pairwise all year long, and we're at number one for 1 point, but we're behind them and Western in the conference standings. I mean, they were all like kind of neck and neck and finished there, but I think like that's the same thing that hurts Omaha as a whole, hurt their chance for coach of the year here, and Pat was the clear winner.
Yeah, and that's my point too. It's they just don't play that tough of a non-conference. And yeah, okay, it is a conference award, but to me, with again with Ronnie and Ethan and um Brandon and all the guys that Western lost last year, to come back and actually finish better than you did last year in the conference and still make the tournament,
And I think we said at the
that's well
beginning of the year,
deserved.
between transfers and freshmen, incoming freshmen, we had like 14 new players.
Hmm.
It was a new team, and he was still able to build on what he did last year. Jason Poland picks up 2 awards this year. The first one being that Player of the Year, and he's also Forward of the Year. Again, I don't know that there's really any surprise there with him getting both of those. Goaltender of the Year, kind of arguable from what I've seen. It goes to Magnus Corona. He had the most wins in the conference. He had the best record in the conference. His team finishes first, and he was up for Player of the Year as well. A lot of people are saying he's overrated. I don't know that that's necessarily the case. I think they have an all-around team that plays extremely well, and
I
he
think
does sort of benefit from that from time to time.
he does benefit, but that's any goalie. And I will say, I do think he had a down year compared to what he's had in the past. But if that's his down year, I'll take that all day long because he's still a very, very good goalie. I think um I think with Umberto, that's probably who they were like, Umberto is better. And he might be better, but he also doesn't have that benefit of a team, and they still did finish in 7th place in the conference.
I
Now,
mean, they
he
almost
doesn't
stole the
have the
tournament.
depth. They almost did, but he he doesn't have the depth with him. He doesn't have um mm, he just didn't have the resume coming in, and I think it's a little bit hype. And I mean, we hype him up too because he is a very, very good goaltender. I just think Magnus Corona um deserved it a little bit more, uh, other than the kid from Omaha, the other freshman.
Lacosi, who came in and
Yeah,
stole
Lacosi.
the 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 job there. I mean, I think
Mhm.
you could sort of make an argument that Cameron Rowe could have been in discussion. He ended up with some great numbers. He did struggle a little bit here and there, but had big wins over big schools. Played extremely well down the stretch. I think he may have even led the conference in goaltender of the week awards. I mean, if you're using that as some kind of barometer towards your goaltender of the year, he had 4 or 5 of them. I mean, I'm not sure how many of those came during conference play specifically, but I mean, he was up there for sure. Um,
Mhm.
so just throwing his name in there, I think Corona was the right choice. But those are the arguing points I guess you could make. Defensive forward of the year, Yami Kronola, whose offense really showed up this week or last weekend in the NCAA tournament or the NCHC tournament, but he was actually defensive forward of the year.
He's done that his whole career. He's always been a good defensive forward, and I think that's the right choice to make
Oh yeah.
for defensive forward. He's just been such a solid player for them. Um, and he's always going up against the toughest lines because you hear his name out there and he's always stealing the puck. He's always blocking shots. There's no argument there for him winning that award.
No, not at all. Um, this one might be a little bit surprising. Rookie of the year, Jackson Blake from University of North Dakota. North Dakota had a little bit. I mean, you've got guys like Ryan McAllister, uh, Caden Emberko. That could have potentially slotted in here.
Ben Steves.
Ben Steves. North
Who
Dakota
yeah.
has a down year, but I mean he's still able to put up some decent numbers and win the awards. I mean, it is an individual award, but as many individual awards, it takes a team to win them too. And so I think maybe that might have been a little bit of a surprise, but they're voted on by the coaches and the media guys who watch every game. And we watched every game. I just don't know that he really stood out that much to me to have put him in here. Um, I would have leaned potentially it would have been less surprising to see Caden Emberko as rookie of the year,
Hmm.
even though you know uh, Colorado did struggle a little bit. I think he was a standout on that team.
I did on Instagram when they had posted the finalists, somebody had said that Blake was going to win it hands down, and I'd commented you spelled McAllister wrong because McAllister to me was Emberko was great. Blake, he never really stood out to me, and McAllister was a standout
Maybe the only
in
thing
when he played.
that hurt McAllister is just he didn't have the number of goals, maybe. But I mean, he was leading the country for forever in points. I think he ended up leading the country in assists, if not was number two or like top three for sure.
Hmm.
Was a standout of the rookie class of the NCHC on a national level, and was part of putting the name NCHC out there. I know you don't really need to put that name out there with what the conference has done as a whole, but he was a guy in national talks from the conference all year long.
And so the funny thing about it was a week later, and going back to your team point, is someone came back and said, well, he couldn't lead his team to a win. It was that same person. He couldn't lead his team to a win against the seventh ranked team in the conference. Well, um, you look at what they ended up doing, and then when North Dakota lost because they were thinking Jackson Blake, I go, "Oh, that's weird. I'm going to use your same argument against you." And then they got all upset and whatever. And I'm like, so you realize how stupid it sounds when you're using that argument that one player in this team game can't win games. And he's like, well, we lost in overtime to the number whatever St. Cloud was ranked at the time. I'm like, yeah, but he didn't win you the game, did he? And
Yeah.
that's your whole point. Um,
And if I
you know,
remember, I believe in at least the Saturday game, McAllister was the one to score the goal, if not scoring both goals that Western put up. So he definitely did his tried to help his team win. It just so happened that it did not go that way.
and that's why it's a team game. This isn't the NBA where LeBron just takes whatever team he's on to the finals and can win it.
Double make sure, but I'm pretty sure he scored at least the opening goal or the only goal Saturday. Or the opening goal Saturday. But I think he scored in both games.
I just found it kind of.
Yes. He scored the first goal or the lone goal Saturday on the power play. No, I mean,
Yeah, I just found it kind of comical and how
and
people get
he
so.
scored the second goal or he scored the first goal Saturday. So he scored both first goals to give Western leads in both games. They just, turns out that they didn't play a full 60 minutes. I mean, I think if you're going to say he wasn't rookie, he did his part. You're not expecting a guy to go out and get a hat trick every night or, to single handedly score more goals than the other team. So he did contribute, but his team lost. So
Exactly, and that's why I found it comical. And it's like, oh well, if Jackson Blake was that good, according to this argument, they should have been a lot higher than the sixth seed.
yeah,
Now, yes, they did beat Omaha, but that wasn't that surprising. Um, but it was just kind of funny and how people think of things without going through the whole process.
that brings us to offensive defenseman of the year from University of Denver, Mike Benning. I didn't follow Denver a whole bunch other than when we played them. He is another good player. I mean, he stands out. He's a name that you hear consistently. He scored quite a few goals for them. They actually pick up both defensive awards. Does Denver? They also have the defensive defenseman of the year in Justin Lee. And defensive defenseman of the year is kind of one of those where you're not going to hear that guy's name said a whole bunch because he's generally playing solid defense and may not be in charge of making like a ton of plays to get his name called out there. They're usually just, a guy you try to avoid when your team has the puck, whether you're passing away from him or you're trying not to skate at him so that he can steal the puck type of thing. But so congratulations to both of those blue liners there.
And I do like that they have it separated out to where there's 2 defensive awards. Because the guys that are, and this is more with the NHL, the guys that are your best defensive players, they don't get any recognition other than from the coaches and then potentially the fans from their respective teams, but there's no award for them. So good on the NCHC for actually giving out this award, and good for him for winning it.
Corona also picks up a second award as the 3-star award, having the most 1-star and 2-star accolades throughout the season. Sportsmanship award goes to Spencer Meyer from St. Cloud State. Just being the guy who's penalized the least amount. There may be some controversy here, considering that there was a player awarded a 5-minute major that may or may not have been warranted in a particular game that would have increased his stat line from 6 penalty minutes all year to 11. But I think Meyer was under that, so was the clear runaway with, I think the dude drew like 1 penalty or something stupid. He had a very low number of penalty minutes.
So it wasn't Wyatt Kaiser?
Definitely not.
Damn.
I think the finalists, the final 3 were actually Wyatt Kaiser, Tyler Clevin, and Spencer Meyer. So it's really his race to lose there. There's 2 guys who are just whacking at people, taking any game misconduct they can. But yeah, no, they were finalists for the Sportsmanship Award.
You got to be shitting me on that one.
I am. They were not remotely in the finals or finalists. All right, a little joke. Let's see. Media Excellence Award goes to Shireen Sasky of the CBS Sports Network crew. That whole crew does a great job. I mean, we were talking about it during the tournament, just how much knowledge that Dave Starman has, and Alex does a great job of play-by-play, and Shireen is always does a fantastic job with her interviews and making everybody feel like their opinion is important and what they have to say means something, and it doesn't show any bias towards any team, and really just a solid all-around production that team has.
Yeah, and I did see on Twitter this weekend. I'm sorry, I have dogs getting antsy.
I have cats and babies screaming at me.
The fact that Dave Starman was not a part of the bracket reveal, Twitter was in an uproar. And
not just the bracket reveal. He's not a part of the NCAA tournament coverage whatsoever.
Yeah, and that is just a travesty in itself, because I think they do the best job of any broadcast out of any sport. I really do, because it's like a national broadcast, but they're actually knowledgeable about what they're talking about, versus you get some of the pro sports and everything, they're just kind of like, we watched a game or 2 before we did this. They know what they're talking about. And yeah, Alex does a phenomenal job. Dave, he's a wealth of knowledge, and just their ringside reporting. I already forgot her name. Shireen. Yeah, Shireen does. You actually want to listen to the interview.
Yeah,
it's not like it's a pointless interview. They're good questions. They're great questions, and it's trying to get some more knowledge. Even if the players do their typical hockey answers, yeah, you still want to know what she's asking, and maybe you'll actually pick something up.
And then Senior Scholar Athlete Award went to Ethan Frisch from North Dakota. So congratulations to all those award winners. Everyone, it was a great season of great hockey, and that's not quite over yet, but those were the NCHC award winners for the season. All well deserved. And on to the games. So, we have another battle between Denver and Colorado College, the first game of the tournament. I don't think anyone, I guess you were kind of expecting it to maybe potentially have, it had the potential to be a low scoring affair with the caliber of goaltenders who were in the game. But the history of these two teams recently would suggest otherwise. But Colorado College rode that wave of confidence they had coming off the Western Series and won a 1-0 game. Tough, hard fought game. Not a lot of chances given up either way. The most surprising thing was that Magnus left the game with about 10 minutes left in his team trying to push to get that tying goal.
Yeah, I didn't see. I was at work, so I didn't really get to see. You're going to have to talk about these games because I did not get a chance to see any of these games. I was just following along from your live tweets.
Yeah, if you check out the Goalhorns Twitter page, I did live tweet throughout the entire game, but that was really the most shocking thing. And I guess as he went off the ice, he made mention to Shreen that he wished he had a full foot. And I guess after the game, Carl said that it wasn't an injury issue, but if you're making comments to the reporter, wish he had a full foot. Kind of seems like that injury that kept him out of the final games of the regular season may have creeped back in, and having an injury like that at this time of the year does not really help your chances when you're looking to go back to back as national champions. And once again, the Penrose winner is not the Frozen Faceoff winner.
And as a goalie, any hockey player in general, the comment of not having a full foot is concerning, but especially as a goaltender because of how much pushing off you have to do to get across.
Yeah.
So that is a little concerning for them to go into next weekend. Or, well, I guess, do they play Thursday or Friday? I can't quite remember.
I believe all the NCHC teams play Thursday, the first team being Western when we get there. I think Western actually kicks off the entire tournament. But yeah, there was a couple, and once again, what have we said when we were playing Colorado all season long? There was one point we made sure to repeat all season long when playing Colorado College:
stay out of the box.
And guess what happens? They took a penalty, and guess who scored?
Hunter McCown.
Hunter McCown rips home a power play goal, which would be the only goal needed to keep the Pioneers out of the championship game, and they get shut out in back-to-back semifinal games. Your goaltender Ryan Fancy shut him out last year before shutting out the Western Michigan Broncos in the finals last year. So 2 trips to St. Paul and 0 goals for a high-powered offense from Colorado.
I do think it's kind of fitting for Colorado College just to get to the final, for them to shut out Denver with the run that Corona had on them without allowing a goal.
Oh yeah.
It made me chuckle a little bit. Just be like, their revenge was sweeter than they thought it was going to be.
And then the second game of the night was the Huskies taking on the Fighting Hawks of North Dakota. Again, another solid game. Castor came in and played extremely well. It was a little more high scoring. There was more goals scored in the first period than there were the entire first game of the tournament, or of the weekend. And it was honestly some really good hockey. The refs kind of held onto their whistles until the end of the game. The interesting thing was North Dakota's challenge at the very end of the game. It didn't make a lot of sense. I guess they were just challenging it because why not? You're not going to lose anything, but it just, if you're watching the play and the way they reviewed it, it looked like they were trying to challenge offsides at the center line and not the blue line. Actually, I believe that North Dakota did have a lead at one point in that game, and St. Cloud stormed back to get it to overtime and won it in overtime on an incredible goal.
Yeah, and I did see, I watched the ref cam from that game that the NCHC posted on their social medias, and it was interesting. It was like, yeah, you can challenge it, and you could even hear it in the ref's voice. It was like, you're not gonna win it. You can challenge it, but
Yeah.
you're not gonna win it.
I was the other moment of that game was the Huskies being on the power play. Do you remember a couple years ago? And it pains me to say this, but the PK that Ottawa had against the Red Wings, where Ottawa literally just controlled the puck for like the entire penalty, the entire 2 minutes, and like skated it into the offensive zone, skated it back to their own zone, and just literally controlled the puck for what seemed like the entire penalty kill.
Yeah, because you sent it to me, and I just laughed at you.
Yeah, well, North Dakota sort of did that to St. Cloud. And in fact, I don't remember who it was, but whoever was carrying the puck for North Dakota like circled the offensive zone twice. And just kept the puck away from St. Cloud for honestly like 30, 45 seconds. It was incredible. It was so funny.
The the parts that because I caught a little bit of the Denver CC game, and I also caught a little bit of the St. Cloud North Dakota game, and they kept bringing up the PK and the power play, and that's something that we had talked about maybe 2 weeks ago, and it just kind of made me laugh of how good the PKs were compared to the power play, or how bad the PKs
Yeah.
were compared to the power. Like it, I was like, yeah, I really don't know at this point, and it makes no sense to me because they're all talented teams. And it's just like I don't know what's going on.
So St. Cloud ends up winning in overtime. That forces them, or they get to the championship game against Colorado College. Honestly, another great game. I mean, all three games were very good games. Uh, and they were close. I mean, it was close until the end in the championship game. Um, it Umberco once again showed that he can compete with incredible the better goalies in the conference. You know, we knew Castor and Baskey had been playing extremely well. Umberco came in and kind of said, "I can compete with you." He gets scored on kind of a lucky redirect by Cronla. I think it hit him in like the shorts or something and bounces past Umberco. So not really like he had much of a chance on it and could be blamed for it. But just a defensive war between those two teams. And we see the importance of defense and playing well in your own zone and having a goalie that can man the pipes and block things that do get to him.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah, I do think we actually had that one on. We were doing some other things, but yeah, it was a tight game until the end when St. Cloud kind of pulled away.
yeah, and I mean there were some decisions made. They definitely had a chance at the end of the game. They got a couple penalties. They have a 5-on-3 opportunity. Um, and almost had another team sneak into the tournament by winning their conference championship. But instead, it would be St. Cloud winning their second Frozen Faceoff championship. Uh, the goal scorers were Kronela, Cruikshank, and Kupka gets the final goal. You know, Cruikshank really puts that dagger to his old team after spending a year at Minnesota before coming to St. Cloud. But he was a former Tiger. Bassey was a former Tiger who didn't play in this game. Honestly, there's a lot to say for this Colorado College team, and they've improved a lot since
Hmm.
their new coach has come in, and they could be a team on the rise. Now, there's some news in the transfer portal that we'll talk to about here in a little bit. I'll refresh this once again once we get there and make sure we have the most up to date information that we can. But really, it's all speculation as far as the portal goes. It's hard to know what's 100% accurate, as the universities are not obligated to release that information, and it's all coming from reps or players or sources. Um, but there are some people who have some dead on information and do a great job passing that along. But before we get there, let's do the all tournament team. It's going to be a lot of St. Cloud guys here, as they were the champions. The most outstanding player went to Yami Kranola of St. Cloud, well deserved.
Mm-hmm.
The other two all tournament forwards were Zach Okabe, who also had a great tournament. The lone Colorado College goal scorer, Hunter McCown. Defenseman Brandon Yoon, also from Colorado College. He joins Jack Pert on the all tournament team defensive side. And goaltender was Jackson Castor.
And I will say it's a little bit of a surprise. We talked about it last week that Castor played games 1 and 2 against UMD, and then Bassie came in and he played game 3 because it was after the loss, and it was more of a, okay, what are you going to do? Who is going to be your number one? And it sounds like Castor is the number one goalie now, after going back to him back-to-back games in the tournament.
I mean, it certainly seems to be. I think you still go with him in the big tournament this weekend because he is the hot hand right now, and a hot goalie can do a lot for you. And he has all the confidence in the world right now. I think it's big tournament time. Also, St. Cloud State, they are the ender of seasons. They ended the Duluth season, as they do not make the big tournament. They ended the North Dakota season, as they did not make the big tournament. And they ended the Colorado College season, as they will not make the big tournament. So,
Well, I suppose they had to get it after being the number one overall seed a couple of years ago and losing to American International, and then losing again in the first round the year after that. So we'll give them this one.
So yeah, where do we want to go now? We can go to some of the players in the portal who have entered, seeing as their team season have ended. We can go to the national tournament. We can,
I think
call it a show there. I don't know. What do you want to do? I'm just messing around. We're not going to call it a show there.
I think we could go. I think we could do portal and then do tournament, since that's going to be the longest. Even though there are some updates, I think we can do the port. Well, I don't. Yeah, I don't think anything's going to break within the next 40 minutes or so in the portal. It might, but that we can cover that after. So I think we can do the portal now and then do the tournament.
All right, sounds good. Also, we have some news on guys joining the pro ranks. For whatever reason, College Hockey News does not like your Minnesota Duluth Bulldogs.
Yeah, I don't know what we did.
Wyatt Kaiser has signed and already debuted with the Chicago Blackhawks. Was that a 3-year entry level deal, or was that a 1-year or like a 2-year deal this season and next season or whatever?
I think it was. I think it might have been a 3-year deal. I believe he was drafted by them. Oh, that's a new one. Oh, never mind. Hang on. I didn't pay attention enough. I saw he signed it. I was like, oh, good for him. Let's see. Yeah, 3-year entry level.
Okay. And then also, who was the other one you said that signed an AHL deal?
It was an ECHL deal, and that was Jesse Jocks. And so he was, I he might be property of the Wild, but he did sign with the Iowa,
Heartlanders,
uh, yeah, Heartlanders,
the
which
ECHL.
is the ECHL team of the Minnesota Wild. Um, so he will be playing there the remainder of the year, and hopefully, he continues on with them.
And the other one was Wyatt Kaiser signs a 3-year entry level deal with the Columbus Blue Jackets as a free agent.
That would be not White Kaiser.
Hunter McCown. Jesus Christ.
Yep, Hunter McCown.
I was looking at Wyatt
They're
Kaiser.
both
I
defensemen.
was looking at Wyatt Kaiser's name. That's why it
No, wait,
stuck in my head.
McCown's not a defenseman.
No,
That
he's
was
a
a
forward.
stupid statement.
Both got one. Also, nope, I already knew about that guy. Okay, I was gonna say, yeah. Also, your breaking news statement about transfer portal was wrong. But no, I already knew about a couple of those. They were on the Rank Lives list. Huge shout out to those people. The Rank Live, Sydney Wolf and Brad Elliott Schlossman are working on all of the portal transfer news, getting that stuff together. Like, they do a great job. I don't know who they know or how they know all this stuff, but they are on top of it and making sure that it is available to whoever wants to know. Honestly, that's where I'm getting the information from. So if you're not paying attention to them, I don't know what the hell you're doing if you're a fan of college hockey, because they are probably, as far as college hockey news goes, they are top tier.
That and even high school hockey news especially in Minnesota, they are unbelievable at what they do.
How they
I
have
do
that much
follow them.
how they have that much time in their lives to follow as much hockey as they do absolutely astonishes me, because I struggle following 8 freaking teams. Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
This they actually get paid to do this though.
it's true.
We don't.
It's also true. I do have a job. I have different hours. I do spend my lunch break paying attention to this stuff though. But, the other 7, 8 hours that I'm 7.5, 8 hours, whatever it is that I'm at work, pay attention to my job, sort of, sometimes, maybe. All right. Anyway, we're just going to go NCHC players, because that's really all we care about here. We'll go in order. Colorado College, Noah Prokop. He is a senior, so probably a senior transfer. He's a 2-time transfer, as he also played at Omaha before Colorado College. He's going to St. Thomas. Defenseman senior Connor Mayer has yet to commit to a new school, probably also a grad transfer, I would assume. Forward, this one just announced earlier today. Forward junior Matthew Gleason. He scored the big goal, the overtime goal against Western Michigan after suffering a game misconduct on the Friday game. Came back Saturday and got the overtime game-winning goal that sent the Tigers to St. Paul. So it's kind of interesting to see him in the transfer portal as a junior. He has yet to commit to a new place. And then just recently added to the transfer portal is senior goaltender Matt Vernon. Maybe not so surprising here, just with the way Emberko came over and took over the net. Again, I mean, it's also hard to keep guys for 5 years, even as a grad student. There are some universities that don't necessarily have your graduate program, and if you can play hockey and work on your next degree, why not? So that might be the case there with those 3 seniors and a junior transferring out. Really, the biggest surprise might be Gleason. Nobody from Denver just yet, as they're still playing.
And I will just say on the Vernon one, I can't blame the kid. I think by the time Emberko kind of emerged and took over that number 1 spot, he was out of luck. He wasn't going anywhere, and he thought he had a chance with Dominic moving on. He's like, yes, this is going to be my net. All of a sudden, shit. Like, it's not my net again. So, good for him. I hope he gets his number 1 spot that that he really wants, and it, in a sense, probably does deserve because he is not a bad goaltender.
No, I mean he played some great games. Played, I think he won a couple games while Emberko was out at the World Juniors with Team USA,
Hmm.
and I think stole a couple games during that time. Um, yeah, no, I mean he played really good, and and like you said, like I agree with everything you said. Like hopefully he gets a spot somewhere, can continue his hockey career for at least one more season, maybe do enough to get a pro contract somewhere and continue playing, even if it's in the SP or the EC.
Hmm. Absolutely.
Um, so nobody from Denver, they're still playing. I guess this isn't exactly in alphabetical order, but maybe I don't know. Next up is Miami. I guess so, because they're Miami University, not the University of Miami. That's in Florida, just so you know. Uh, let's see here. Joe Cassetti Sr., two-time transfer, also played 1 year at Merrimack. Some young guys leave in here too. Defenseman, sophomore Alex Murray, Chase Platsky, senior forward, Michael Holland, junior forward, and two surprises here. Sophomore forward, Detroit draft pick, Red Savage, has chosen to enter the transfer portal, possibly because his brother had graduated or was a senior this year and is probably graduating. So there may not be as much of a tie there anymore. Um, someone, if he does play at least one more year, someone's getting an extremely talented player. I think he just ended up on a team that's struggling to both find an identity and to play consistent games. And this one surprised me when I saw it pop up. Junior goaltender Ludwig Pearson has chosen to enter the transfer portal. I mean, it is surprising in the sense that he was a lot of why that team had any success and was a player that they could build around, but also maybe not necessarily a success because that team, or a surprise because that team has struggled so much.
Yeah, I think with both Red and Ludwig, they I think they just had enough. There wasn't anything that was happening, and it's like any free agent that's on a bad team. If you have a chance to get out, you're gonna get out. And Red was such a big name, but he didn't have any help around him to allow his talent to grow. And Pearson, I mean, the dude was putting up 40, 50 saves a night and he's still losing games. I mean, like at a certain point as a goalie, you just gotta he's probably having nightmares and can't sleep at night. So he's gotta get out of there too. So hopefully both of them, Red gets on a team that can actually help him grow and develop, at least for 1 year and um, up his stock basically, even though he is a draft pick, and Detroit has the rights to him that he won't start in the ECHL, that he can start in the AHL. And then Pearson gets picked up by an AHL team by showing that, yeah, I am a really good goalie. I just can't have a crap team around me.
Yeah. I mean, the thing with Red is I don't see him. He's not going to go to Detroit this year. They're falling out of the playoff hunt rather spectacularly. They still have a logjam at forward. It doesn't really benefit him to attempt to leave college early, stay, develop, play some fun games, like hang out with the boys, enjoy being a student and a student athlete, enjoy being big dog on campus a little while longer before you have to make it a career. And I mean, for Ludwig, find a place that you can really let your talents be noticed. I think it makes I think Miami's going to have another down year unless they find something spectacular either in the transfer portal to fill those spots, or they've got some incoming freshman goaltender who's going to pull an Umberco. I mean, it does not
I
look
do
great for
think
Miami.
no, it doesn't. And I think with Red, he was not going to flourish at Miami. He he was kind of well, he was the big name coming in as a freshman, and then he had more expectations after his freshman year. This year to have Miami take that next step, and I don't think it was good for him. I just don't because I mean, he only had what 14 points, 7 goals, 7 assists this year. I mean, they
He
didn't
did
score a
struggle
whole
a little
lot.
bit. He did go and play in the World Juniors, and that got his name out there a little bit more. But did have some struggles this season, and some of that could just be the caliber of teammates he had. Uh, trying
Yeah.
to get the puck to and not necessarily getting some support because at the end of the day, it is a team game.
Yeah, I do think it's going to really benefit his career um going somewhere else where he's going to have more support around him. So hopefully some team will pick him up um that will be able to provide him for that because that's going to be the best thing for his career. And like I said, same thing with Pearson, that he actually gets a team in front of him that's not going to give up 40, 50, 60 shots a game, and that he has to hold down the fort, that he can focus and make the saves that he needs to, and maybe the one or two here versus the 4 or 5 or 6 or 10 that he has to make to keep his team in the game. Um, that he'll be able to move forward. So I think both are for the two of them. I think this is the best for their career to go somewhere else. As sad as it is to say about Miami, they're not good.
Yeah. As of yet, nobody in the portal for Duluth. We did mention that they did have a couple guys go to the pro ranks, but nobody in the transfer portal as of yet. Omaha having one player, defenseman sophomore Davis Pennington, has entered the transfer portal, has not at least made his commitment known at the moment. Some North Dakota names, all sophomores. Brent Johnson, defenseman, a Washington draft pick, and has not yet made his new commitment known. Goaltender Jacob Helston, forward Matteo Constantini, and Luke Bast, defenseman. Constantini is a Buffalo draft pick. So interesting to see almost their entire, or at least, what could be an entire sophomore class deciding to part ways in North Dakota. Maybe the most surprising being the goaltender because Helston was the number 2 for most of the season.
Hmm.
I believe it was Johnson, not Brent Johnson, a different Johnson, I believe, who came in, actually started game 2 against Western, local kid to North Dakota. Unless they're expecting him to kind of be the go-to guy next year. Interesting that Helson has decided not to compete for that starting job with fifth-year transfer student DeRitter graduating after playing 1 year there and previously playing at Michigan State. Um, it's interesting to see who leaves and who stays and what, like, we may not ever know why they're leaving. But when you look at some of the circumstances, like we know the goaltender ahead of you is leaving.
Hmm.
And yes, there may be high expectations for the current freshman who was sitting most of the year, but I feel like that's still potentially a job that could be won unless, they're going to try and find another experienced goaltender. Do they try and pick up convince Pearson to stay in the conference and come up to North Dakota? Do they talk Matt Vernon into coming and playing a year with a better team in front of him and see what he can do for one season? Uh, do they go outside of the conference again and try and find, hit another at least triple with goaltenders? They've done it back-to-back years where they brought in that grad transfer goaltender to play 1 year, last year's goalie from Bemidji State this year. Again, DeRuyter from Michigan State. You're putting a lot of eggs in one basket when you're hoping to pull from the transfer portal like that year after year. A little bit of good news for North Dakota, though. Bad news potentially for the rest of us. Reese Gaber has decided to stay for a senior season. Honestly, I love it when guys stay for senior seasons.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something to be said about enjoying, like, getting that one last year and knowing that, like, you've worked your way up to being potentially like you're a leader on the team. Like, there's no two ways about it. If you're a senior member on a hockey team, you're a leader on that team, and he's a player that is enjoyable to watch because of his skills and talents. And I hate watching him because he usually does something to hurt me as a fan of my team.
Yeah.
But I do like it when somebody sticks around for all 4 years or even makes that decision to continue playing at their school as a grad student on a 5th year, which I think we're getting pretty close to being done with the free COVID 5th years. So that may be a trend that is dying here unless there's a medical reason or some other exemption for that 5th year. But the 5th year, it will soon be back to what it once was in the oddity that only became a part because of some other external force.
And I just kind of want to go back to
I just didn't want to spend too much time on the negative, and at least throw some positive in there. Throw a little positive biscuit in there for the Fighting Hawks of North Dakota, since they're not in the NCAA tournament. And there's back to some negativity for them.
I got a little distracted. I think the Wild just scored with less than a second to go in overtime to win the game. But with all the transfers that North Dakota has and and I mean, that's only 4 or 5 of them, but it's still a sophomore class. They've already seen now 2 years of that team bringing in transfers and trying to build that way. And I don't wonder if that's what the culture is now. And it's like, okay, we're here and we didn't get that much playing time, but now they're going to bring in a whole another group of transfers and we're not going to get that much playing time again because there's no faith in us. Why would we stick around? And that seems to be a trend that North Dakota is going towards, is they're just trying to rely on the transfer portal instead of building and recruiting and developing their own players, as opposed to a Western, as opposed to UMD, as opposed to a St. Cloud, where you'll take a transfer here or there. You're not opposed to it if they're the right fit, but you're also not relying on them to build your team, because Western didn't have that many transfers come in. I think we only had 2, maybe 3.
We had a good number come in. I had it written down, so I'm gonna see if I still have it. Just because I was paying attention to who were the seniors, the senior class. Like, we had a lot leave last year.
Mm-hmm.
But Carter Berger was a transfer student. Zach Columbus came in. Perbix came in. Cam, the backup goaltender.
The goaltending Larson, situation, you guys were screwed.
But Larson and Cam were both transfers in. Younger guys, so not that senior transfer. This was Cam's junior season, so he's around for at least one more year. Trying to think if there's any other big names. I think those were the big. I mean, that's still five, six guys that I can think of by name that were transfer students, because
Hmm.
our senior class was not very big, and only 3 of them were full time Broncos from freshman year to uh, Jason Pullen being a 4-year senior, and then Cole Gallant and Jamie Rome being grad students. So those were the only 3 other out of the senior class this year that were Broncos from day one. Um, the other guys who skated on senior night were transfers in, but it's still. I don't think we really relied on it too heavily, and Firstweiler didn't really want to rely on it too heavily. So we'll see. We'll see this year how much that plays a role in again. And
Yeah,
because I mean, those guys did make a difference. I mean, but at the same time, our most productive guys outside of Cam were guys that we brought in as freshmen. Jason Poland, Ryan McAllister, Max Sasson, Jamie Rome on the power play before he got injured. Cole Gallant played an important role yet again. Luke Granger played an important role, scoring some big goals at big times. These are all guys who came in and as freshmen and are reaping the benefits of spending 4 years with coaches who have been able to get the most out of them and help build their game and potentially get them to pro contracts. Like there's no way that Jason Poland is not a top prize in this year's free agency class when his season ends. There's going to be people trying to pull him, and he might get a shot at the NHL right away.
and I think that goes exactly back to what I was saying is these coaches, they know these kids, they're able to develop them, but the way and we'll see how it plays out this year. Um it, throughout the summer and into the beginning of next season with guys transferring in, but if it's a third year in a row where North Dakota is pulling in a lot of transfer players, then it's starting to be a pattern. And this isn't college basketball. This isn't the one and done, and you go play for Coach Calipari at Kentucky, and you're going to get drafted in the first round of the NBA. You're these kids, they're coming and they're being promised things in a program, and you're starting to build a reputation where it's like, yeah, I might go here, but if I don't play right away, then they're just going to bring in some transfer guys and they're going to take my spot and I'm never going to see the ice. So I might as well get out of here. And I think that's going to hurt them in the long run. Like, yes, it is North Dakota. Yes, they have that reputation, but you look at all these sophomores that are leaving, they've lost confidence in that program. That there might be all these different reasons, but to me, I look at it as I've lost confidence. I was promised all of these things and I'm just expendable. And so if they keep going down this path, I don't know how long Coach Barry's going to be there either. Because if that's what he thinks the formula is to win and they're not winning, then he might be out too. Because in college hockey, you can't do that. You're going to have down years, but that's why you develop the talent. We had a down year this year, but as of right now, nobody's transferring out. And the young kids, they know they're going to get a chance to play because there are guys that have moved on and they need to step up and get those roles. It's the same thing with Western. You had some transfers in, but you had the young guys that came in and they produced and they know they're going to have that opportunity. And it's like, okay, as Trevor said, so what if you don't play your freshman year, really, no big deal. You're getting used to college life. It's that second year that is going to make the difference, and it's a little telling, I think, of the sophomore class going out in North Dakota.
Yeah, I mean, like, uh, Constantini might be the surprise out of that group, seeing as he had the most games played. Johnson had 13 games played. Helston had 13 games played, 5 wins. Constantini 25 games played, and Bast 13 games played. So I mean, Bast is the most surprising just because it does look like he got quite a bit of playing time, as the other sophomores kind of really didn't. They were put in here and there, so they may be
Hmm.
looking for an opportunity for more playing time and hoping to steal it from someone else. So I mean, it's an interesting situation, and the portal is an interesting thing anyway, and we might be able to get back into that more in the offseason like we did last year. I really want to hopefully get. I have some requests out there to a couple players who were in the transfer portal, and hopefully we can lock one of those guys in and see what that experience is like and that process is this offseason. If not, we'll try again next year and we'll see who says yes and who says no. I'm always shooting invites out there. Not everyone responds. And those who do, for the most part, they do say yes. A couple have, I think only maybe like one or two have fallen through and gotten lost in the shuffle. But for the most part, we're on a high note with some of the guests we got. And we'll definitely try and get Trevor back over the summer. He's always a fun conversation and a great dude to go to and get some perspective on some of this with the life experiences he has in the college hockey world.
Experiences is an understatement.
Yeah, buildings falling apart, losing passports. Just a wild ride that young man has been on, and I can't wait to hear more of his fun stories. The final one, Western, they're still playing. They actually opened the NCAA tournament, so nobody in their transfer portal yet.
And also no one from St. Cloud.
And no one from St. Cloud, as they are also still playing. And no one has left those teams for the pro ranks because they are still playing. Speaking of still playing, there are 16 teams still playing, all vying for an opportunity to bring home maybe the grandest prize in college hockey, one could say. I don't know. Depends on how you look at it. The right to call themselves national champion. Denver is the defending national champion. They are the 4 seed overall in the tournament. Where do we want to start? Let's go. Do we want to go number ones by overall seeding? So we'll start with the overall number one.
Yeah, kind of go bang, 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 bang.
You can just go so. The first overall is clearly Minnesota. We'll start with their region, then go to the Quinnipiac region, then Michigan, then Denver.
That's fine.
All right. First off, some tidbits. As we've said, 16 teams, 4 regions. I don't even know that. Do they still call them something stupid like the West region, even though it's played in Ohio and it's the furthest west? Which is, it's not played in Ohio. I think the furthest west is the Fargo region, but still, it's beside the point.
Yes, they still do.
Stupid. Yeah, the Midwest region in Allentown, Pennsylvania. Hey, guess what? Pennsylvania, you're not a Midwest state, right?
No, you aren't.
You're not. You're an Atlantic state, I think, maybe. You're an East Coast state. I think you touch the Atlantic Ocean and therefore could be considered an Atlantic state. I'm going to say you do, and I'm going to say you are, so there, suck it. Who cares about you, Pennsylvania? You were the East Coast equivalent of Nebraska, okay? There, I said it. I said it.
You're not wrong.
I don't like the Penguins either. There. Where were we? Oh, yeah. So, 16 teams, only 6 of which are coming off of a win in their last game. 10 or not. So there's a little fun fact for you. For all the people who like to worry about momentum or what teams have done. Only 6 of these guys, because they are the tournament champions. So we'll start with Minnesota over in Fargo, North Dakota. They get, I don't remember what conference they're from. Hockey East?
No, they're Atlantic Hockey.
Atlantic.
Yes, they were the 4 seed, I believe, in Atlantic Hockey.
Canisius. They were like 41st in the pairwise. But they won their conference, picking up the auto bid for Atlantic Hockey. They will face number 1 seeded Big Ten regular season champion, Big Ten tournament runner-up,
Choke artists.
Minnesota. Oh man, if they would have won that game on that incredible goal, I think that was the goal to put them ahead 3-2 or whatever. That steal and score. Oh, that thing was dirty.
But yes, the Big Ten choke artists for the second year in a row.
Minnesota Golden Gophers.
Losing to Michigan for the second year in a row.
Your state is full of people who are obnoxiously agitated by this bracket as if it were somehow a magical round robin and they had to play all three of these teams, as opposed to realizing the gimme that they should have in the fourth round, playing the 41st ranked team in the pairwise, a team that is only there because they won their conference tournament, and then they have to play either St. Cloud State or Minnesota State. St. Cloud State being there because Penn State is the host of their region, and Harvard and St. Cloud State were technically like extraordinarily close between the 7 and 6 seed. And in order to potentially bring in more fans, they left Harvard in the East Coast area and put St. Cloud in the West region. So yes, all three Minnesota teams in the tournament are in one regional. And Minnesota fans, you only got to play two teams. Minnesota State could definitely beat St. Cloud State, even though Minnesota State had a slightly worse year than last year. They're the CCHA champions. Oh, here's a little fun fact for you. This regional also has 3 tournament champions in it.
Yes, it does.
With Canisius, St. Cloud, and Minnesota State all being able to capture their tournament championships. And maybe if Minnesota hadn't sucked the big one in the Big Ten championship, it would have had 4 champions.
Yeah, they're good at that. And I think the main thing that Minnesota fans have is, because we are the self-proclaimed state of hockey, we want as many teams to make it to the Frozen Four. And I talked to you about this, and it kind of annoys me. To me, this is going to be the most fun atmosphere out of all 4 of the regions. And that's just my opinion, because it's about a 4-hour drive from Minneapolis. It's about a 3-hour drive from St. Cloud, maybe a 5-hour drive from Mankato. Like, Canisius is the only team that's not going to have fans there.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a rocking place. It's a great place for a regional. From what I know, it should be one of the best regions.
Could be.
I mean, it could be, but who knows?
Also, a lot of talk about how regionals should be at on-campus sites for number 1 seeds, but we can talk about that in the off-season. That could be a fun conversation. Do we want to do our picks now, or do we want to just go through the regions and then do? Let's just do picks now. Fuck it. Let's speed this up a smidge.
That sounds good.
Not double back on anything.
I'll let you do yours first, because I might have dogs bark in just a second, so I'm gonna mute myself.
I have Minnesota moving on over the Griffins, and Minnesota State, they were had a little bit of a down year. I think they were the underdog of their tournament. I don't quite remember, because I think they played Michigan Tech in the championship game. Michigan Tech got the at-large bid. Minnesota State got the automatic bid for winning the CCHA. If it were last year, plus St. Cloud is in a different spot that they were in last year. Last year they had, the goalie issue was left over from the first round of the NCHC playoffs. This year they seem like they're a much healthier team. They have a goaltender who's been there, done that in Castor, who's played some big games. They came out and won the NCHC Frozen Faceoff as a 4 seed. As an NCHC fan, I guess I picked St. Cloud State to win that game, but that one really feels more of like it could be a toss-up, but I think St. Cloud is the better team. Minnesota versus St. Cloud. We did get a glimpse of this earlier this season in a 2-game series. I believe it was split, and that was just after Christmas. I think it was right around New Year's that we got that matchup, and it was everything you expected it to be, and it was fun stuff. Um, St. Cloud's on a roll, and I don't really want to bet against the NCHC. I think St. Cloud can make the Final Four this year, and they could beat Minnesota. I'm gonna put
I think they
St. Cloud as my first team in the Final Four.
I think they could beat Minnesota. I'm gonna go Minnesota over Canisius. Mankato was the number 1 seed in the CCHA tournament. Michigan Tech was the number 2, but they
Oh, is that
ended
what it
up,
was?
yeah, they were the number 2, but they ended up losing to Northern Michigan
Oh, Northern played them. Okay.
in 4-0 in the semifinals. So that dropped them a little bit. And then Mankato also won in overtime again for the second year in a row.
Yeah, I know.
Uh,
I'm aware. I'm well aware that they've won it second time in a row. I may or may not have pulled the trigger on a joke there without really thinking it all the way through, but it landed. It was enjoyed by some.
landed well enough. Um,
It hit the target. May not have
yeah,
been a
I
bullseye, but it hit the target.
as much as I would love for Minnesota to lose to Canisius, especially with now Gopher fans who decided that they didn't want to show up to the arena and they were drawing maybe about 2,000 fans per game since the team got good again under Motzko, which you knew was going to happen. They think they're hot shit. Um, I would love to see them go down. I don't think they're going to go down to Canisius. I think St. Cloud has found their rhythm again after such a struggle to the end of the year. So I do think they beat Mankato. Um, man, I do think St. Cloud can beat Minnesota just like you. I wouldn't put it past them to be the first team into the Frozen Four and beating Minnesota because again, Minnesota has this high end talent. It's kind of like Michigan last year, and they're highly touted. They're such a good team. There's so many players. Well, hmm. You get this St. Cloud team that's played together for how many years together already. They know each other, and a lot of the guys have been there before because they're not that far removed from I think even the national championship. I think there are still some guys on that team from the national championship.
Yeah.
Now, yes, I lost some years in there and can't get anything straight anymore. Um, but I just think St. Cloud has that experience versus and they have the talent, but that experience versus the talent I think might win out. So I'm in agreement with you on that region.
All right. And we'll go to the next one, which I don't remember where this one is at. It is the. Yeah,
It
we'll
is
just stick with
in
the way we did it the last time. We won't go by the game time. So actually, we're doing the late games first and the early games second in these regions because we're going by seeding.
Yep, yeah, that's fine.
Oh, wait,
I don't know where the hell this is.
Allentown? No, Allentown is Michigan.
This is not helpful, guys.
There's Allentown, Manchester, which is where Western is, Fargo, and what is the last name of the last region of this stupid tournament? That's nowhere near anything. Bridge, is it Bridgeport?
It could be Bridgeport. That seems to be a favorite. So we'll go with that until I find it.
I feel like that's where it is, right? I want to know now, but I also don't want. I don't want to just say random words until we find it. I would like one of us to pretend that we know what we're
Hang on.
talking about. We don't. We never know what we're talking about.
Fargo, Manchester, Allentown, and Bridgeport.
Bridgeport. Haha, suck it. I knew
Yep.
what I was talking about. I'm just
So
gonna leave that there.
this one
Bridgeport.
is Bridgeport.
Quinnipiac versus Merrimack. Neither one of these teams won their tournament. So both coming in off losses. Quinnipiac's been near the top of the rankings all year long. I have no idea about either of these teams, if I'm being honest. It's not even worth my time to pretend like I did. Other than I know
I
that
mean,
Quinnipiac has been near the top of the rankings all year long.
in reality, half of the brackets we pretty much know nothing about.
You're not wrong. I've seen some of these teams play games that aren't NCHC teams. So yep, we'll go with Quinnipiac. Sure, why not?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Might as well. I don't think they've ever been lower than 3 this year. Like
They were at one point. I mean, they marched their way up. I think they might have been number one for a hot second.
I know they were at number 1 because they were flip flopping with Minnesota.
Yeah.
For a while before I think Denver took over and then St. Cloud took over and
But
then
the only
Minnesota went back there.
the only thing about them that worries me though is the East Coast bias that seems to exist in college hockey, and their schedule making. I don't know enough about them to say they played a schedule that prepared them for the tournament, whether that be a conference schedule or a non-conference schedule. Um, so they could be a team that's just benefiting from the fact that they're a pretty solid, well-known team in the world of college hockey, and they exist in the Northeast. But I mean, I guess the same could be said. I mean, that's a lot. Like most of this, 3 out of the 4 teams are East Coast teams,
Mm-hmm.
and so that entire
I
regional could kind of be that way.
I do think Quinnipiac, because they've been somewhat relevant for the past, I don't know,
5 to 10 years.
5 to 8 years. Yeah, 5 to 10 years. And so it feels like they've been building it up. They have made Frozen Four appearances because I know I've seen them on national television, and that there is some bias, but I think with the exposure that they've had over the past decade, and they're building their team, I do think they're probably more legit than the East Coast bias just in general. Um, they and yes, they don't play that strong of a schedule because I think they're well, they're not Hockey East, they're ECAC, I think.
Couldn't tell you.
Um,
I would say the same thing as like an outsider looking at um I'm trying to do 2 things at once and my brain won't let me.
yeah,
Omaha
they're
though.
they're ECAC.
Okay. But I had the same issue with Omaha. Omaha finished ahead of St. Cloud, but St. Cloud played such an aggressive non-conference schedule that it bumped them up and put them in a position that even if they hadn't won the NCHC, they still would have been in the tournament pretty much in about the same spot. If
Mm-hmm.
if Colorado College had won that game on Saturday, Colorado College would be in here, and I don't remember who the other team that would have. Maybe Michigan. No, Michigan Tech was like 10th, but another team would be out,
Yeah, I mean,
and they might be. Maybe Merrimack would be out, and Colorado College would be playing there.
yeah, Quinnipiac, I mean, they played BC, and then they tied Long Island, and then they tied North Dakota and beat them 6-2 when North Dakota was number 3
Yeah.
at the beginning of the year. But then
But then North Dakota kind of wasn't the North Dakota we were expecting them to be the rest of the
Mhm.
year. So that win, it takes a little bit of uh, spice off of that win, which is what the
Mhm.
pairwise is supposed to do. So look, I mean, we'll see. I think the right teams show up at the right times and will win the games. I mean, I'm expecting Quinnipiac to at least make it to the regional final
Right.
and have a decent chance at making the final four. Um, the other matchup there, which is the 2 o'clock Friday game, this regional plays Friday, is Harvard and Ohio State. Ohio State, the fourth and Big Ten team in the tournament. They've been on a little bit of a rise. I mean, Western played them last year in an exhibition game. I have zero clue about Harvard other than it's Harvard. They generally have an okay team. I don't know how much. I think like 2 years ago they didn't really play because of COVID. I don't know what kind of schedule they played this year. They lost to, I believe they lost to Colgate in their conference tournament. I believe that's what it was in overtime. I think Colgate got the win.
I'm getting there. Just no, I want men's sports.
I know Colgate won their tournament.
Um,
I'm pretty sure it was over them. Um, Flip a coin. I mean, I guess I don't know. In my brain, I'm flipping a coin because I don't know who either one of these teams are.
I mean, yeah, they tied and lost to Michigan when Michigan was 5 in November. Um, and this is just non-conference. They beat Northeastern 8-4, which Northeastern was not
They didn't make the tournament
quite the
this year.
team. Yeah. Boston was 7 or 8, and they lost 2-1 in overtime. And then they beat BC 4-3 in overtime. Lost in a shootout to Northeastern in the Bean Pot. Yeah, I'm trying to look at Ohio State, but
You know what? I'm gonna pick Ohio State because I know one player on that team.
you know what? I'll pick Harvard just to go against you.
They have a transfer player from Western Michigan named Scooter Bricky on the Ohio State team. He's a defenseman, and that will be my pick. I will take Ohio State because of him. So don't let me down, Scooter.
I will, and so you're taking Ohio State. I'm taking Harvard.
And since I'm taking Ohio State, I think they're going to lose to Quinnipiac, and Quinnipiac's going to make the Final Four. Just because it's Ohio State, and I can't pick them for more than one game because I hate Ohio. It's the worst state ever. And their highway system blows like a northeaster.
And I will do. Oh, that's weird. They only played them twice. But I will take Quinnipiac to win because in the only 2 meetings that they had this year, Harvard did lose 4-1 and then 3-0.
So we both have Quinnipiac, but I have them going through Ohio State. You have them going through Harvard. I need to write these down because I spilt apple juice over my copies that I was going to write on tonight. So I should write my picks down somewhere.
All right. Now we go up to Michigan and
Allentown, Pennsylvania is the site of this regional. Um, Colgate kind of surprised the college hockey world a little bit with their overtime win over Harvard. Michigan is another Michigan team. They've got some good players who may only be 1 year players. They've got standout freshmen in Fantilli. They swept the Broncos this year early in the season, which I'm not extremely excited about. Uh, their goaltender plays some suspicious maneuvers in the crease sometimes. They're a number 1 seed playing a very low ranked Colgate team who had to win their way into the tournament by winning their conference. I think we can see where I'm going in picking Michigan.
Yeah, I think it might be a. I don't know how to feel it because I'm looking at these different schedules, and I think Colgate, they did. I mean, they lost 3-2 to Quinnipiac, but they did also beat them, and they beat Harvard. They beat Quinnipiac 3-2. They lost in overtime to Harvard as well.
I mean, I'm not saying it's going to be an
Uh,
easy out. I think on paper and what we saw last year of the Michigan team that did make the Final Four, they seem to be a very similar built team to that one. Ugh.
yeah, I think if Michigan's gonna win, they're just gonna squeak by this Colgate team because looking at their schedule and the teams that they played and how they did, they're not going down easy, and they're gonna fight because they don't have. Let's see, what's the biggest loss? I don't think they lost by. Okay, they have won by 4 goals, and that was Clarkson. And then Merrimack beat them 5-0 once. They don't have that many bad losses.
Colorado College showed us that
Most are 1 or 2.
if you can get hot at the right time, you can win a necessary number of games to do something special. You only have to win 4 games. If you've got a goalie that can get hot at the right time, anyone can sneak by and do anything. Not saying they can't. Just saying, think, feel like Michigan is the better team here and should pull this one off.
You know what? I might just go with Colgate just to be different and with what they were able to do.
So you're gonna
I
say 2 number 1 seeds get. Oh wait, no, never mind. We both picked Minnesota, but we have Minnesota not
yeah,
making the Frozen Four. That's what
and
it
we
is.
also have Quinnipiac
Mud,
winning there first.
mud
So yes,
stomping that regional.
but I'm gonna go with Colgate to beat Michigan.
Okie dokie. We'll see how these age next week.
Probably not well for me, but you
Minnesota
know what?
and St. Cloud, and then Quinnipiac. All right. So Michigan, I am Michigan. You have Colgate.
Yep.
Penn State, Michigan Tech. I saw Michigan Tech in 1 game. Um, it was not a good outing. No, I take that back. I saw them play 2 games. Well, 1 game in 7 minutes of another game. So I think we got there for the last 5, maybe 12 minutes. I got there for maybe the last half of the third period plus overtime. I was also possibly not in a mental capacity to really understand what I was seeing. But I also saw them get kind of mud stomped by Western Michigan in the GLI. I couldn't tell you a single person who was on the Penn State team. Not a clue. Um, I think they did okay this year. They might have been like third in the Big Ten, maybe. I'm also pulling these numbers out of my butt and not looking them up because I don't care enough about the Big Ten hockey teams. Do look them up. So if you feel
Um,
so and you would like to tell me that I'm a dum dum, go ahead and do that in the comments. I'm not going to read them. That's not true.
yeah.
I read the comments every week and generally have a decent conversation with one person who comments in there. So,
Uh, Penn State was 6th in the Big Ten.
yeah. See, I don't care about the Big Ten. But how are they sixth in the stupid tournament?
I
I mean,
don't, I
I
don't
guess
know,
probably the
because
same way that St. Cloud was. I mean, there's
I
four
mean
teams in the
that'd be
Big
my
Ten that made the
guess.
tournament. I know they didn't win the tournament.
Yeah, because 1, 2, 3, and 6 made it, but Notre Dame, Michigan State, and Wisconsin did not make it.
Yeah. All right, whatever. Penn
I
State.
don't know.
And you said Michigan Tech was the second team in the CCHA.
Yes, they were the second seed, and they did lose to Northern Michigan 4-0.
Mm. Yeah, screw it. I'm gonna put Tech in there. I'm gonna put Michigan versus Michigan Tech.
Yep,
A
that's where I was gonna go.
former GLI contest, so two teams that would know each other pretty well. I think Michigan Tech actually beat Michigan last year in the nope, they did not. Wait, did they? Yeah, I think they beat Michigan but lost to Michigan State last year in the Great Lakes Showcase that Michigan pulled out of in the second game and didn't play Western last year, which is why the Michigan was not invited to the or part of the GLI this year, other than they may also have pulled out and decided that they're above that tournament after 50 some years of playing in it. Anyway, Michigan versus Michigan Tech. One game, I think I'm gonna send. Oh, I don't. I'm gonna put Michigan through. I think they make the stupid Final Four again.
And I'm gonna send Tech through because I think Colgate gets that magic for one game, but then I don't think they get it for the second game. I think Tech is gonna be mad enough after losing to Northern Michigan, kind of embarrassingly with the 4-0. Even though my guess is the fourth goal was probably an empty netter. Um, I'm gonna have Michigan Tech out of that region.
It's not a bad thing. I don't know. It's hard to say that because I'm such a homer. You know that I want Western to come out of uh, the next thing, so it's really hard to say that three number ones are gonna lose, and we'll have only one number one make the Frozen Four. I think that's kind of silly to say that it's not at least 50-50 in number one teams. Well, that takes us to the Manchester Regional. Manchester, like New Hampshire or some shit.
I was gonna say it's weird that they're playing it in England.
I mean, they're in New England. Most of these stupid games. Anyway, Denver versus Cornell. Cornell was not a conference champion, so they got an at-large bid.
I'm just gonna go right out and say it. Denver wins this one.
The only thing for me is how healthy is Corona. Is Matt Davis serviceable enough to get them through and play under the big lights? I mean, he did come in for the last 10 minutes of the NCHC tournament and kept Colorado College from scoring a second goal. But they want to lean on Magnus. Magnus is the only defending national champion goalie in the tournament. He's the only returning goaltender from maybe Portillo played last year for Michigan. But he's the only returning from the championship game.
Yeah, because Jordan McKay left and
Went
got
to the pros
busted.
because of not wanting to potentially serve a suspension for some inappropriate supplements. Um, that's how I'm gonna say that. I mean Denver does seem like they should be able to pull this one out even with Matt Davis in net, but that's the only real weakness I see is and that could affect them more in the regional final than the opening game.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but yeah, I mean I'll put Denver through over Cornell because I know fuck all about Cornell yet again.
Cornell got swept by UMD at the beginning of the year, and
But
that's when I already knew we were a bad team, and we barely. I'm like, and hindsight's 2020. Cornell's in the tournament, we're not, but I'm like, we barely beat Cornell. That, and yeah, they're a better team, but I knew we were a bad team, and we swept them. Denver, they're just a better team, and I don't think in this game it really matters as much who's in net. So I think, Wednesday, it is a short turnaround, but Corona has some time to get treatment, get his foot fully back. If he's not there, I kind of gamble with Davis and just trust your team to play the right way like they know they should and they know they can. And then have Magnus come back in on Saturday.
possible. And then the final matchup, which is actually the first game to be played, it'll be played Thursday at 2 o'clock Eastern, the right time zone for things to know when they're being played, is Boston University, the Boston Terriers, versus the Western Michigan Broncos. I want to pick Western to win this game. Western is undefeated in neutral site games this year. They have scored 22 goals in 3 neutral site games. Senior captain Jason Poland has a hat trick in each of the neutral site games they have played. Those wins coming over a Northeastern team and a very good goaltender who is a top 10 finalist for the Hobie Baker Award, in Devin Levi, who just signed with the Buffalo Sabres. An 8-2 win over Michigan Tech in the GLI. Their goaltender also in the top 10 for the Hobie Baker Award. And an 8-1 win over Ferris, Michigan. Or Ferris State. Yeah, Ferris, Michigan. Jesus Christ, words. They have struggled a bit as of late. For those who have said that the last time they were swept, they went on to win the GLI and go on a 10-game win streak. That's not 100% accurate. I mean, they did do that earlier in the season, but
Mm-hmm.
the last time they were swept, before being swept by Colorado College, was by Denver, and they then went on to, yes, win the next weekend with a regulation and overtime win over Miami, but they really struggled in that Saturday game against Miami. Western has got to play well in their defensive zone. They've got to get pucks out of that area. They cannot sit on them. They need good clears. They have a line that we have talked about numerous times over the course of the year and even the show in Poland, Sass, and McAllister that can take over a game and score all the goals needed to win. Offensively, there's no doubt. They need to stay out of the box. Their penalty kill has been atrocious. I think that's partly a result of the fact that they just haven't played well in the defensive zone, and it's carried over to that. If we get a Western that we saw during the 10-game streak. They could win. I'm going to take them to win because they are my team. I will not doubt my team, but I have reservations of my team.
I think the
And I have an all NCHC final for this regional.
I think the biggest question is like you said, which Western team are we going to get, and especially off the layoff. Now, if they would have played well enough to beat Colorado College, and then either lost in the semis or lost in the final, it's a little bit different because there might be, depending on how they lost, there might be a few little tweaks here and there. But now they've been off for a week and a half, basically, if not a little more. How ready are they going to be to come and play? And I don't know how long BU has been off.
They'll be ready to play. There's no question they won't be ready to play.
But it's which team comes out and which team sustains it.
And that's the other thing. Western has to play 60 minutes. I've seen them play 55 minutes this year. I've seen them play 59 minutes and give up 3 goals to a Colorado College team to lose the game 3-1 after being up for most of the game. We saw them struggle a little bit in the second period against Northeastern in Tennessee and Nashville.
A little bit. They struggled a lot, but they still won.
But they've also, faced some adversity and come out on top. They've struggled, but they have struggled in big games this year. They struggled against Colorado College to get to St. Paul. They did not do it. They had an opportunity to potentially take the Penrose from Denver, and they were swept by Denver in a couple games. And Denver just came out and outplayed them in 2 games. I want to see the good Western team, but I have to be honest with myself, and there are some question marks to this team. I think they can beat Boston. I truly believe that.
Well, I will say this. It looks like they could at least get past Boston, and I think they will. I think it'll be a close game, but from what Western Michigan Hockey posted on Instagram about 3 hours ago of went at a hibachi grill.
He is working that egg.
He is working that egg. I think they're feeling pretty loose and pretty confident. I know they still have a couple days, but I think they get past the first round and then they get an all NCHC matchup, which I think that's the toughest to call, basically off of Corona. That I think he's the biggest factor in that game for both teams, because they're 2 high-powered offenses, and it's which goalie will be better. And I don't think Davis can. I just don't think he can do it if Western, if Western makes it past, and Corona can't play. I just don't know if he can do it against that offense, because Denver can put up the points, and then it's going to be how much 5-on-5 time do you get. But I don't know about that one. Who moves on between Denver and Western?
Western went. We only played Denver once this year. We might have only played them once this year.
I think you only played them there. I don't think you played them out in Denver.
Yeah, I think we only played them here. Or if we did, it was at the beginning of the year. If we did, we got swept. We lost all 4 games to them if we played them twice. I know last year, I think we did play them twice. I think we got 4 games swept by them. Uh, I know last year we got 1 against Denver. We did not play them earlier this year. Okay. I know we did not play them twice in the second half of the season. We'd only played them once.
That's what I thought.
They were moderately close games. 2-5. I mean, it really should have been 2-3. Maybe 2-4. And then empty net goal instead of the 5-minute major to pull in on that Friday game. And then 1-3 were the 2 losses to Denver. Here's the thing. Western is 100% capable of winning this regional. I 100% believe that. I think they have the talent. They have the ability. But they have to put it all together. This is the time where you literally cannot take a minute off in a game. You have to be able to put it all together for 60 minutes per game. You have to put it together for 120 minutes this weekend and 120 minutes the next weekend to win the national championship. I have seen Western teams do stupid things and sweep teams they have no business sweeping. But I have also seen them do stupid things and get swept by teams they have no business being swept by, losing games by ridiculous amounts that they shouldn't have lost, winning close games, losing close games. I've seen it all as a Western fan. If they play to their abilities and to the best of them, they can sweep this weekend.
If they play to win the game.
Play to win the game. I mean, you have nothing to lose, honestly. Everything's ahead of you. You lose, you get to go home a little bit early, and you start working towards the next season. But I think there's a lot of expectations that they're going to win at least one game because they did last year. But there's also some expectations because they didn't do what they kind of hoped they would do at the end of the season. You know, they tripped over Colorado College. They kind of lucked out into being the number 2 seed in the tournament because Omaha lost to North Dakota, and St. Cloud had lost a game previous to that to like North Dakota or something that kept them from really getting to second.
I think it was to Miami, actually.
Something like that. I don't know. Or even because I think they swept you guys at the end of the year after you had swept them at number 1. Maybe it was the losses to you guys that really tied it up. I don't remember.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah.
They got some help to get the number 2 spot in the conference. They've struggled in big games this year. That's the only thing that really makes it so I don't want to 100% say it. I don't want to be honest with myself. I'm going to say that they win because they're my team, and I'll always pick my team, and I'll look like a doofus picking my team. I don't care. I would rather look like a doofus picking my team and then lose than look like a doofus who picked the other team because the other team made more sense, and then my team wins the national championship. I'm like, I had them out in the first round or in the regionals because I'm an idiot.
Well, you look like a doofus no matter what, so there's that.
And so I'm gonna say that 2 NCHC teams make the Frozen Four. Western wins its first regional in program history. They will play St. Cloud, and Michigan will play Quinnipiac, and we'll talk about those 2 games next week if we get there. Because I don't really want to pick the whole tournament right now.
Well, yeah. Well, yeah, because we don't know who.
I mean, we could.
Who's going to do what?
Honestly. But okay. Let's just pick the whole tournament. Fuck it. Western versus St. Cloud. I take Western. And Quinnipiac versus Michigan. I'll take Michigan so that it's Western versus Western Michigan. And Western Michigan will win the national title.
And I have Denver versus St. Cloud. Denver wins. I have I don't remember who the hell I picked now.
You would have Michigan Tech versus Quinnipiac.
Michigan Tech versus Quinnipiac. I have uh, Denver versus Quinnipiac, and I think I have Denver going back to back.
All right. So those are our uneducated first round whole tournament picks because you got to pick the whole tournament. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. This episode has been almost 2 hours. I'm tired. I need to go to bed because my new bedtime was actually like an hour ago, half hour ago, something like that. I don't know. It was a
I was
while
gonna say
ago.
probably a half hour ago because
Yeah.
if it was an hour ago, we've only been talking for half an hour.
Yeah. My new bedtime was a half hour ago. I mean, we did talk about a lot. There's still a lot more to talk about. News came out that Western might be getting the use of a new arena in downtown Kalamazoo. We can talk about that later in the off season if it becomes more of a possibility, probability, likelihood, whatever. Talk with Trevor potentially in the off season, most likely, almost assuredly, as long as he continues to say yes, because he's become our best hockey friend.
And I think I have at least two potentially in the pipeline.
We have one for sure in the pipeline. We just have to nail
Oh,
down a date once the NHL is done.
yes, that one is in the pipeline. We have another one that
I
I just
have
need to get my brother to reach out to.
I have a soft maybe and semi ghosted from another one.
I think I know who that one is. Well, there's a couple of them, but I think
I have a yes from another one that I just had to set up dates for once the NCAA wraps up its season. We can work on that one, and I can reach back out to them. I just don't want to fuck with them right now because they're in the tournament. I actually have two that are in the tournament
mm-hmm.
right now. That I do not want to reach out to or distract or fart around with. I want to let them do their thing because I'm nobody important.
Yes, we are not the media. We are just two idiots that love to talk about NCHC hockey.
Um,
Or at least one idiot in myself.
so we'll let them finish their stuff up, and then I will reach back out to them and hopefully nail one or both of them down to a date. It's shaping up to be a pretty fun off season with the people that we've reached out to and the yeses we've gotten and the just farting around with dates.
Yeah, it should be fun just getting different perspectives and hearing different stories and everything, and having those conversations, because I think that's what you and I both try to do anyway when we're talking about this, is have a conversation. We love hearing other people's perspectives.
Yep. But so yep, that'll wrap that up. We will cover the regional round next week. We'll also go into see what kind of portal news is going on, any more pro signings. We'll be late to both of those parties because we do this on Tuesdays, and some of those could happen as early as Sunday or Monday. So sorry we're late on the news. All right. I got a life to live. If you've made it this far for whatever reason,
God bless you.
please, if you feel so inclined to do so, hit the thumbs up or the thumbs down. I don't really care. Maybe you thought we sort of knew what we were talking about enough that you'd like to listen to us again in the future. You could subscribe to the channel. You can follow us on Twitter at our personal handles. Those are always on the screen below us. The page has a Twitter handle which was in full use last weekend, live tweeting games. It's right there. I think depending on the game time, I think the only game I won't be able to live tweet either from my personal or the page would be the Western one. There's also an email address. If for whatever reason you need to email us something, a topic to talk about, a question, it's there. going by right now. Yep, and it's finishing up now. Or you can leave it in the comment section. I do check the comments. I think that's it, right? Like, subscribe, hit the bell notification if you really want to be known when we go live, but it's usually around the 9 o'clock ish hour Eastern time on Tuesdays. If it's going to be earlier or later, I do tweet it out from the show page. I think that's it. I think that's everything.
I think so. I think
Well,
you got it all.
Other than the most important thing. And every team should try to accomplish this. Put pucks on net. Good things happen. Like goal horns and fight songs. Enjoy the tournament. Root for who you want to root for. Root against who you want to root against. Till the next episode. He's Mike. I'm Wes. We're out of here. Adios.